For the makers who lead, success isn't measured in promises. It's measured in results. At Rockwell Automation, our 24,000 employees across the globe focus every day on delivering business results for our customers. Because with every result achieved, we realize the promise of expanding human possibilities. That's why we're Rockwell. Our customers make products and deliver solutions that touch all of our lives. And they partner with us to realize measurable, consistent, and profitable business outcomes, delivering the real results they and their customers depend on. The people of Rockwell and our vast production technology portfolio make a real difference in industrial production quality, speed, and efficiency, making a difference in ramping up adequate supplies of life-saving vaccines, making a difference by helping deliver vehicles that are affordable, efficient, and safe, making a difference by engineering sustainability into every system and solution we deliver. Because at Rockwell, we believe better is possible. And the results we deliver add value for our customers every day, in every industry we serve. Our systems connect your company end-to-end with data-fueled insights, improving the decisions that deliver results and expanding human possibilities. Rockwell Automation. Results achieved.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live stream today. I'm Katrina Parr, Global Social Media Manager at Rockwell Automation, and here with me today is Chamanvita Gopalpur, our Director of Data, Science, and IoT, and Lachlan Stokes, our Digital Services Sales Executive of CPG. We have an exciting live stream for you today. I've brought these two experts to share insights around unlocking rapid, cost-efficient scaling in food and beverage manufacturing. Chamanvita and Lachlan will be sharing a preview of what's to come in one of their upcoming webinars, and we'll deep dive into that topic next week. I'll drop a link to that webinar right here in the comments of this live stream. And speaking of the comments, of course, we always want to hear from you. One of the benefits to joining this pre-webinar live stream is getting to hear directly from our experts. So please jump into the comments of this live stream. Ask any questions you may have, share your thoughts on the insights that we'll be discussing, and maybe tag a colleague or two that might find this video valuable as well. Now, let's dive in. Chamanvita, you work with clients on strategically planning, designing, and implementing digital solutions, which gives you a lot of insight into the challenges they face. Can you share with our viewers an overview of why this webinar is important for today's food and beverage manufacturers as they face similar challenges?
Sure. So I think generally what I see with manufacturers are they launch their digital transformation journey. They have their vision, they have their strategy in place, they've got the budget, but they keep getting stuck in the same loop. So they start their pilot, the pilot is successful, you achieve the milestone, the leadership celebrates, and then eventually it doesn't scale. You're then like a year later, 2 years later, you're restarting this pilot with probably a new vendor, probably a new technology. And why this webinar matters is really to explain that the technology really isn't the problem. The technology will work. It's really about making sure that organizations think about scalability in mind, think through the design for scalability in mind when they start the digital transformation program. For food and beverage, this matters mainly because operational complexities are high, margins are low, so any failed proof of concept, any failed pilot really is a huge impact in terms of cost as well as time investment.
Excellent. You mentioned proof of concept and proof of value and how those deliver challenges associated with those unrealized values and the cost of time of restarting with every new deployment. Can you share a little about how the MVP concept can help solve this?
Yeah, so generally, when you're looking at a proof of concept, you're thinking about the technology. Will my technology work? Can I make this deployment successful? But when you shift that mindset to an MVP-based approach, you're really looking at the persona. You're thinking through the end user, like an operator or a shift manager, and you're really looking at how will this impact them? How will this improve their day-to-day life when they adopt this solution? So what an MVP does is really it forces you to start thinking about the design and in mind, as well as to force you to make the decisions early. So how would my data model look like? What would my process flow would look like? What would my organizational adoption look like? What is my architecture? So when you start making these decisions right from day one, so when you're going to site number two, you're not rebuilding, you're basically configuring the same solution using a replicable playbook, a template. So that's really what makes scaling successful. So when you're going into site N, for example, you're really effectively reducing your deployment cost by roughly 75%, and that's where you actually see successful digital transformation programs. This is where you'll have the playbook that makes you successful.
Great, that's great. Thank you so much, Chamanvita, for sharing all those incredible insights. Lachlan, let's talk a little more about that MVP first approach. Can you share more about the architectural and organizational traps that stall pilots and how the MVP first approach helps overcome those challenges?
Yeah, sure, Katrina. So Chamanvita mentioned a typical journey that we see organizations go on through a pilot through to scale. And what we find is that there's sort of several categories of items that can torpedo programs like this. And you alluded to organizational architectural challenges. From an organizational standpoint, and we'll explore several of these in the upcoming webinar, but I think sort of one big one from an organizational standpoint is the divide between local and corporate functions. So local functions have problems that they want to solve. They tend to have budget. They want to operate quickly. They want to solve their own problems. Corporate functions want to solve problems across the enterprise. And so they want to take something that might be done locally at a plant and they want to scale it across the organization. Those two worlds sometimes don't reconcile. The speed at which a plant wants to operate versus the standards and the scalability that the corporate function wants to operate tend to live on different planets. And so there's a trust issue between the two groups that can torpedo something that might be developed at a local plant site that then wants to be scaled. From an architectural standpoint, it's a little bit similar. Things that we see from a technical standpoint are really around standards associated with data and technology. So solving something in a plant has its own data models, data structures, equipments, process flows. Those things are not replicable across different sites. And so from an architectural point of view, scaling a pilot across sites gets hit by lack of standards and data.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Are there any added benefits to implementing the MVP first approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So taking on an MVP or minimum viable product approach, the whole idea is the fact that you're dealing with some uncertainty in these early stages of this process. And by taking an MVP approach, it takes risk out of the equation, takes risk out of the process. There's certainly a soft benefit there from taking an MVP approach in terms of de-risking your process, but there are actually some harder benefits you get from it as well. So as I mentioned, there's uncertainty often involved in building out a minimum viable product. And with that uncertainty, there's benefits in taking an agile approach. So taking an agile approach in an MVP cycle reduces the cost of change. And increases the sprints or the throughput in which you deliver that change. So I'd say that there's, the additional benefits, there's a soft one, is it takes risk out of the process by employing this approach. And it also reduces the cost of change and the speed and the velocity in which you actually deploy functionality that's of value to the end user.
That's interesting. And I know by now, I'm sure our live stream viewers are highly anticipating this webinar, but there's no way we could possibly cover all of it here in this short live stream. So I'll ask you both to give some closing thoughts on the value of next week's webinar. If there's perhaps one area that we didn't cover in today's live stream, or if there's a perspective you think will be a game changer for the food and beverage manufacturers. Chami and Vita, why don't you go first?
Sure. I think probably the key takeaway would be really in terms of the economies of scale. So this is not just a story. This is in fact real when you design it right. Digital transformation is hard, but when you start designing it right, you are able to scale cheaper and faster and are able to have a successful digital transformation journey. And that's something that we would definitely want to showcase as part of the webinar, walking you through lessons learned, walking you through our perspectives and how to get it done and how to get it done right.
Amazing insights. Lachlan, how about you?
Yeah, sure. The big one here is that scaling is often viewed as a trade-off between efficiency and effectiveness. Like, how quickly can we scale and get this idea rolled out to other lines and sites? But then the flip side of that same coin is, how can we make sure that we do it so that the end result produces the outcomes that we're expecting it to? So it's two sides of the same coin, and it's often viewed as one or the other. We need to focus on effectiveness, but it comes at the expense of speed, and vice versa. It doesn't have to be that way. You can actually take elements of both of those that drive both the effectiveness of the solution, so it delivers the outcomes you want, and you can do it at a pace that executives don't lose patience with. They continue to buy into it. And ultimately what that drives for you is a solution that delivers the results you expect, but it actually reduces the marginal cost of deployment as you go, which is, both of those things are what executives are looking for.
Definitely. That's great information and a perfect cliffhanger to get us excited to learn more next week. Well, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank you, Chaman, Vita, and Lachlan, for joining the live stream and sharing all of your amazing insights.
Thank you so
much. And thank you to our viewing audience. Thank you all for watching and joining the conversation in the comments with your questions and your thoughts. Now take a moment right now and make sure you're registered for the webinar on May 19th. We've got the link here on screen, as well as we'll be putting this in the link in the comments. So go ahead and pop down into the comments, click on that link, register for the webinar. We hope to see you all in the webinar next week and to learn more about scaling digital solutions in the food and beverage industry. Thank you so much for watching.